Hello there! Thanks for joining me again. Now that you have been introduced to the four-phase breakdown process of a glucose molecule in optimal conditions, let's talk a little bit more what happens if oxygen is not available at the first stage glycolysis. As we remember to really get the best value for our buck in terms of extracting the maximum amount of ATP from a single glucose molecule, we needed to have oxygen available. If this is the case, cellular respiration takes place, and we just reviewed what happens in it. However, if oxygen is not available, fermentation occurs. During this process, the pyruvate undergoes reduction, and in total only 2 ATPs are extracted from one glucose molecule. This is rather inefficient if you compare it to the 38 ATP molecules that can be extracted under optimal conditions, isn't it? Now, depending on the type of organism, there is a little bit of a difference into what this pyruvate is reduced into. So if we are talking about animals, something called lactate gets produced. Have you ever heard about a person exercising intensely? And by this I mean especially aerobic exercise, where they are working so hard that there is just not going to be enough of oxygen that they can take in to meet the need of the body for oxygen. Well, this is when you build up what we know as lactic acid. You remember you can keep going, but eventually, after you have stopped exercising, your muscles will be so sore. But this is useful because we can still keep going even when not enough oxygen is available. And even more, the conversion process of glucose to ATP is really fast. Much faster than going through the 4 stages of the complete glucose breakdown. So there are times when this can be beneficial. Really, the disadvantages are the losing out on the maximum ATP amount that could be extracted, and the fact that this process releases products that are toxic to cell. So we cannot be doing that forever, and there is a price to pay later on. Remember, we get really sore after exercising and keeping exercising beyond our oxygen intake capacity. Now, it does not have to be only animals that rely on fermentation. For example, yeast is used in a fermentation reaction to produce alcohol from this pyruvate that I mentioned earlier. Can you think of examples where we use this for food production? Yes, there are many. How about beer and wine? Also yogurt, and of course our pickles and sauerkraut. As someone who lived in Germany, I must advertise that there is this great German restaurant in Phoenix that really has the sauerkraut thing figured out. There are many health benefits that we could discuss in relation to pickled food produce, but let's leave that until later. So, your course textbook will offer more detail about the fermentation process, but this is where we will wrap it up for now with this presentation. Thanks for sticking around.